Hi. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to actually in the month's August card and channeling meetup. Yes, we got ourselves back together, obviously in Virgo season. My opposite sign as a Pisces, so it always gets me together somehow, some way. Here we are. So today we will be using, at least for the monthly read and for the key card for the cards and channeling group, we'll be using the tarot of gemstones and crystals. And then for people's individual pulls, we'll see who wants to jump in the game. Now, a little story time, viewer. This is the tarot of gemstones and crystals. Its box looks extra cheesy, like paperback romance, but for crystals. It's giving Dungeons and Dragons. It's giving not the Dungeons and Dragons, it's creepy people, like whatever, play the game. I've played it before, like live your life. But just saying, it's giving like this is gonna be a highly like edited type of deck that's maybe not gonna show like you just the stones in their own glory, but it's the first deck that really taught me to not judge a deck by its cover, because I found it at the bottom. There was like I don't know what that thing is, the roundabout thing that holds like cards and sunglasses sometimes, but that like the thing that has the lazy Susan mechanism, which is also an offensive name for the Susans. But it was at the bottom of one of those sideways, so you couldn't really see it. And when I looked around, it was the only one, and I was kind of like, it kind of is ugly, but it came to me kind of in a special way, so I just bought it, and it was obviously wrapped in plastic, so I couldn't get a sense of it. And I think I bought it long enough ago that like my phone's internet wasn't popping off that I could just like looked it up. But that was years and years ago. And then last year in the summer, I was talking to my cousin, David Fox in Belize, who also had his own tarot deck, but he had like a traditional Rider Waite. And I wanted to give him something, but he didn't like it that much because he was like, it's got, he's like, I use it sometimes, but it's got these images, these like really white people. And so I had some decks, and I was like, okay, well, let me give him a deck that doesn't have anything to do with people and also has something to do with nature, because it's like most Belizeans are kind of nature familiar, if not nature loving people. And so I gave the deck away. But what I didn't realize at the time, well, whatever, it wouldn't have mattered if I had realized it at the time. But basically, this is kind of like a first edition. There was a second edition, and it was released, and it looks different in the cards. And when you see the cards, I'll explain to you how it looks different. But they're also not being printed anymore. So when I looked up this deck after remembering it after all these years, all these years, after this year, all this time, and I looked it up, I was like, oh, I got to buy one of these like now before they're out of print, and they cost a lot of money. So it cost me like a bill, but that's low for the quality of the deck, because when you get to the deck, okay, it's giving you sexy high definition photos of these stones, okay, like the way that case was looking, the way the box looks, and the way these cards look is an insult. It's an insult. Like, what? No, like, give me a break. But it taught me not to judge a deck by its cover. It taught me to trust my intuition and my gut. And there are just some really, and also I just like having a deck that doesn't really have any people on it, because I think sometimes we're so humanity takes like its humanity so personally that I think when you have physical images of people on cards, their mind sort of wanders to what that represents in their mind. But when you just have stones and they're not necessarily, yes, death does not match the box. But when you have stones and also you're not necessarily like, I actually came into my practice by using, outside of dream work, it was stones that brought me to a divinatory practice. But I don't just be like knowing what all the stones mean. So this deck forces us to sort of utilize whatever's coming up and not so much rely upon like the symbology of the typical deck. So we're going to get into this deck. It's just really beautiful. So I'm glad that I got it. But look at that watermelon tourmaline. All right. So we're going to shuffle. We're going to do the monthly read. As we all know, that is the concern card, the opportunity obstacle card, and the advantage aversion. Then we're going to pull the key card. The key card is either the keystone or the skeleton key. A keystone is the stone that holds the structure together. Ultimately, it's one thing that if you removed it, the whole construction would come down. And the skeleton key is a key that can unlock any door. So, or like a master key of the house, right? So we're going to see whether the key card is the master key or if it is the keystone. These cards are like so new and crispy. Also, I bought them, obviously, actually, when I bought this deck, it did say it was by this like Mueller, but I had to buy this deck from, I think I bought it from someone like in Finland. And I realized, oh, this deck was made by a European person and then distributed by an American person. But I didn't realize that the first time around. So also a non-trifling deck from Europe. I mean, come on, people. We gotta love. So our concern card for the monthly read for the following month, September, approximately the next 30 days, Virgo season, also entering into the fall season, is the Page of Wands, which in this deck is Jade. So, messenger season and wands, right? Suit of fire, our suit of, which is also interesting that they chose jade, a much more cooling stone for that. But, wands, a suit of fire, personal aspirations, personal development, personal motivation, the self-driving engine that motivates you to do whatever you do, whether you like what you do or not. The thing that existentially co-signs your beliefs. Wands is what motivates us to not only exist but coexist, right? It's not just about survival in the wands, it's about how people perceive you doing the life and the life game, the life acts, etc., etc. So with wands, I typically like to say to people, it's about how you see yourself and how the world sees you, and if those images are equally yoked. And when we have a low opinion of ourselves and the world has a high opinion of us, then we're in the Robin Williams, Whitney Houston categories. And when we have a high opinion of ourselves and the world has a low opinion of us, we're in the Trump Hitler categories. And that the goal is to be received in the world and reflected upon and known in the world in the way that you believe yourself to be, in the way that you present yourself, which would mean that there's cohesion between internal belief and external belief, and that you truly know who you are. Now, obviously, if you grow up in a fake as fuck culture or family and shit, okay, the outside reflection is still going to be distorted, even if your shit is together. But the point is, then you move, right? Like, if you are like, I don't agree with anyone around me because they don't understand my perspective, and then you continue to move yourself into different environments and that keeps happening, then it might be you. But if you keep moving yourself into other environments and there's development on that end, then trust that like that was just not the proper reflection for you, who you were becoming. Because I think that I've been working with this recently, actually, and I think actually it's kind of a healthy perspective to keep in mind in the wands department, because this idea, like even language, right? Like saying that something is bad or wrong. I think it's not specific enough. I think, and of course we're dealing with the Page of Wands, right? So we're dealing with a messenger. It's like, it's not enough to say that something's bad or wrong, because according to what, right? According to you, according to who raised you, according to the time period you lived in, according to what. But to say something that you don't prefer something, this is a more specific topic. This is something that you can actually speak on with authority. Now, you can have social conditioning that causes you to prefer things and not prefer things, and you might not know that, but at least you are owning what you do know in that case. The point with wands, I think, is really just to feel like you have to hold back very little, even if you choose to, that it's not that it's required, that it's not that you have to hide out in public, but that you are showing up to the greatest extent that you can, considering the environments that you're in, and that when you're presented with an opportunity to state your genuine opinion, that you do. And even if that would result in a disagreement with a family member or getting let go from a job, that is the more authentic narrative of your existence than the alternative, right? So wands is a little bit of a trick because even though swords is kind of like the shaded sheep, we're going to go away from black sheep. Okay. I'm very much like reconfiguring my language right now. So even though swords is kind of the shaded sheep of the tarot family, because when people get swords, they're like, oh my god, I don't want to end like bad things. Wands, if you look at 2 through 10, and then as you know, I read aces high, so page, knight, queen, king, ace. Like wands really goes through it. It's only really about like 2 of wands, 3 of wands, and 4 of wands, where wands is chilling. And then from that point on, from 5 and up, wands, even up to the king, is like stress the fuck out. So with the page of wands and the concern card being not just subjectively for our month, I think we're dealing with sort of what is genuinely our passion, and not even the conversation where you're like defending that to other people or like trying to explain it to other people. It's like the conversation where you're having an internal dialogue, which is like, am I still about that shit? Do I really care about that thing? Am I investing myself in the right ways for me? Like, am I even enjoying my own company with the choices that I am choosing for myself to do and to be? So at the page of wands here, I think it's giving us a little bit of energy of like coming to terms, maybe like burning away what isn't necessary, coming to greater terms. I mean, of course, in Virgo season, you could say like cleaning house, cleaning internal house, making sure that you're to the best of your ability at a pace that makes sense, considering your circumstances, of course, but that your home, your friend group, your work group, your family, your community, your activities are involving people who are actually aligned with you and who make room for you by, not by not being themselves, not by making themselves small, but simply by being as true and authentic as you are to them to the best of their ability, so that you guys know what you're doing together. So there's very little like that isn't apparent from the circumstances. So basically making your life as close to an equally yoked image as you can, right? Because obviously there's societal factors that create conditions where all of us are, I can't even speak like that. There are societal factors and conditions of the times and spaces that we're in that create a spectrum of choices that are, largely conditioned or unfavorable or oppressive, right? Like there's a lot of things you have to work your way out of. So I'm not suggesting that like you become perfection, but I am suggesting that the more changes that we make towards the version of ourselves that we most prefer, right? Because wands is definitely a phoenix suit. Fire is the only suit that consumes itself in order to exist. So there's an existential awareness in the fire suit that is immediate, right? It's like, wherever I go, there I am. I can't get away from myself. It's that feeling when you're hyper existentially aware of your existence in relation to everything else. The bigger acts that you can take in your life that reflect the version of yourself that you most prefer to be, the greater like leaps or bridges that you can create into the dimensions of existence that you prefer, right? Because it's like, I've used this example a lot, but it's like if I want to be a published author, but I'm not writing and I'm not sharing my writing and I'm not self-publishing and I'm not sending my shit to a publisher, I don't have the future of a published writer. So at least not posthumously or purposefully or legally, right? Because if someone was publishing for me without me knowing it, then that would be illegal. But the point is, you have to simulate the life that you want to have. And when I say simulate, like take shape of it as much as possible in order to be in the dimension that life would be had in. So even though there's all this mess going on earth, and every time you look up and down, there's something going on that seems to suggest that the collective is fucked. Just remember that for you, all you can do is take the actions and do the things and be in the places and be with the people that the version of you most prefer would be doing under the same circumstances. under the same circumstances. Because I think we get fucked up when we're like, if it were like this, then no. Like, there's no if, it's what it is now. And even in that situation, because obviously the version of ourselves that we most prefer is the hero, right? So like, it's not like they're not encountering inconvenient situations. They're definitely still coming into situations that they are inconvenienced by, just that they respond in a way that you believe is more fortified, more confident, more aware or able than you give your own self credit for. So with the opportunity obstacle card though, it's like, all right, with this concern, with the Page of Wands, with coming more to terms with who I truly am in the now, and shedding more, but also welcoming in more, because existence abhors a vacuum. Am I using the concern as an opportunity or an obstacle? Am I using it as a stepping stone or a roadblock? And our card is the first one I showed us, the Fool, which is Silex. I don't even know what the fuck that is. After I go through all the cards, I will read what the book says about the stones, because I don't be knowing that stuff off the top of my head. But I do know what the Fool's about. So, I actually think this is a card of permission, because the page is a messenger. Obviously, there's concern on the messenger's part about how the message comes across, because in historical, we say, society or idioms, we say don't shoot the messenger, because if someone doesn't like what the message is, they will retaliate and react upon the person who brought the message to them. So the page archetype is acutely aware of how it will come across. But the beauty of the permission of this opportunity obstacle card is that we go from the wands about like my existential reality in connection to everything else to major arcana, right? My spiritual purpose, not my human purpose, but my purpose that existence co-signed me into it for, and my relationship on a existential level beyond my humanity, but just as a being in the world, right? Or in the universe or in the multiverse. And the Fool, of course, is giving you permission to like find out by trial and error, right? Like trial by fire, trial by foolery, right? And when I'm saying you make those the most large bids that you can, you take the biggest actions that you can towards the version of yourself that you most prefer, that is within your spectrum of believability right now, right? So it's like, if a version of you that most prefers is like, yes, one weekend every month, I'm gonna go out of town to do X, Y, Z in the third, right? Then you aim for the one weekend, right? You just exercise the muscle, and then you see because location is a quality of a thing, you change the location and you change the thing while you're doing the actions of the version of yourself that you most prefer. You exist in the space of those actions and you see whether they actually are preferred, right? Because you may do those things that you imagine you prefer, and then when you do them, you're like, actually, this is some bullshit. And it doesn't always have to be that hostile. Like, for instance, I went hot air ballooning and I didn't realize there was a difference between a helium balloon and a gas balloon. So my friends took me on a gas balloon adventure, which always looks very scenic and like beautiful. But the thing about gas is that that's fire, and it's right above your head constantly through the entire ride. So me, Black woman, I don't want fire above my head. Helium doesn't have fire above your head. That's the one that's all quiet when you're in the basket. But this one is like you're in the sky, there's fire above you. It's extremely hot. You're supposed to be looking out on the land and appreciating everything, but you're sweating. And then you're also worried that, for some reason, your hair is going to catch fire and you're going to be in a basket thousands of feet above the air. And that is not fun, right? So I had this idea of hot air ballooning, and then hot air ballooning taught me there are two kinds of hot air balloons. And now I know I will never go in a gas hot air balloon again. But the experience is what taught me that it was not what I thought it was. I will go in a helium balloon at some point because I do like the perspective of the air. I just do not want the fire so close to me in the process. Trial by fire is not my favorite. Some of us really like that though. Like some of us really like to be in the mix and have shit be really like tense. And that's also of course a negative societal byproduct, right? In a negative society, we move from necessity instead of choice. and we need our back against the wall or between a rock and a hard place, or to feel like basically existentially threatened our survival, that it is not, that somehow it will fall to parts if we don't do something, and then we do something. But those of us who are becoming the versions of ourselves that we most prefer are shifting more and more into neutral society. And neutral society says, I don't have to move from necessity, I can move from choice. This isn't a bad job, I just don't want to be here long term. And even though it's providing what I need, I already know I want to be elsewhere. So I'm not going to wait till I hate the job. I'm just going to leave the job now while I have the energy to move on to something else. Or this relationship isn't bad, but we don't want the same things. And even though we enjoy each other's company, I'm loving the reactions that I'm seeing. But this relationship isn't that bad. And even though I love this person's company in the now, I know where I want to be in life, and this person doesn't want the same things as me. So I'm going to leave this relationship on neutral, good terms instead of on terms of resentment and anger and loathing, right? Because that's the mature thing to do. I think sometimes we just want to feel like right and or like validated in our feelings. And so we'll take it to an extreme place so that we will validate our own feelings. But if we actually just choose to go from a neutral place and validate that shit can be neutral, then we also don't need to have such high highs and low lows, which isn't to say that, like, the reason you don't need to have high highs and low lows too is because it's like, if you're just constantly on an upscale, it's always high highs. It's just not this kind of linear path of destruction that we typically do. And that's kind of why the Fool comes in here too, right? Because it's like, do the unexpected action. Take the unexpected action for yourself. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Take the road you wouldn't travel, because that's what the Fool does. And do the unexpected in a way. And by doing the unexpected, but the desired, because the Fool definitely is attentive to their desire, then you also sort of naturally create the environment and the circumstances where it's not all you doing the work, right? It doesn't have to always be you announcing the things to the people around you. Obviously, existence provides its own opportunities for you to have those conversations, or someone else will bring something up, or something will happen and the conversation will come up. So outside of those actions, like outside of those circumstances, though, when it's just happening, existence is existencing around you and you have an opportunity to respond, when you can take action with the Fool and the opportunity and the obstacle, it's like, sort of do the thing, take the road less traveled by, do the thing that you haven't done yet, until it is done so much that you can feel as equally jaded about it. But in the practice of doing that, you will figure out new practices, new concepts, new methods of going about life. And then for our advantage aversion card, what about our character is helping or hindering our ability to live a more authentic life, where we're not so much concerned with judgment, which is also the Fool, right? But we are more concerned with the experience, the experiential knowledge, because the Fool is also someone who's not really that concerned with what people think about them. They're not around long enough to care what people think about them. They're busy off to the next interesting shit they find interesting in that moment, and they're not really concerned with what people think about the past. The Fool doesn't worry about the future, and it doesn't worry about the past, because it gives everything to the present. It says, from the present, everything is defined. So let me give myself to this. And once it's on to the next thing, it doesn't really have any time to regret. So with knowing that, what about our character is helping or hindering that? And we have the Three of Wands, Tiger Iron. Now, back in the Wand set, back in Iron, we also have some little animal medicine in the mix with the tiger, right? And, as I said, the early wands are the happy wands, okay? This is when we're still living in the joy of our passion and our ecstasy and our excitement, and we're seeing results, right? Like, a synchronicity is happening, alignments, finally we get away for the thing that we wanted to do. Finally, we see the people that we've been wanting to see. Finally, we're on the journey we promised ourselves we would go on. We're in that moment of celebratory expectation, where almost like, okay, this is a dependent if you like roller coasters, right? But it's like the moment on a roller coaster before the big drop happens, and you're like anticipating something different and exciting happening. Unless you don't like roller coasters, in which case don't ride them and don't have this example in your head because for you that would be a terrifying moment. But you survive it, right? You do it and you like lived and you have a funny picture and story to tell. So the Three of Wands is very much in the celebration of the choices because in the Two of Wands we're like, fuck it, I'm gonna see the world. Like I'm gonna do myself. I got to figure it out through osmosis. Like I can't be held back. We get to the Three of Wands and we're like, I made the right choice. I am finding my people. Things are good. But then we get to the Four of Wands and we're kind of like, okay, nothing is forever. So where do I want to go with myself? And I think with the Three of Wands, where if you take advantage this month, and just in general, obviously when it's appropriate, but like if you take advantage this September and really act the way that you need to feel, right? Don't fake it till you make it. Act the way that you need to feel. If you want to feel more joyous or more active or more confident, that you invoke the people, places, and things that you know cause that for you so that you can have those things instilled in your life, aka be the version of yourself that you most prefer. But like in doing that this month, especially with that Virgoan energy and that fall energy of like gravity, right? Like things coming to ground. I feel like the advantage aversion card is giving us the indication. Like if you do that as authentically as possible and with don't know mind, which is the Fool card, that you can really gain momentum and like attract very quickly to you the things that you are or are trying to, and also finding support behind that. So I can give you like a tangible example from my life, right? Like I think I've talked about this with y'all, but if I haven't, then I'm gonna talk about it with you now. But like between like December and March, I was in the dead of winter. I was very obsessed with eating dill pickle sunflower seeds. I still find them very amazing and delicious. But like I'm allergic to nuts. So I didn't grow up really like feasting on nuts and shit. So I didn't realize that like seeds and nuts and things were like fatty. And I was eating like so many sunflower seeds. And I gained like 30 pounds. And I didn't even notice that it happened because I don't even know how I didn't notice, but I didn't notice that it happened. So right before my birthday, I was trying on all these birthday fits and I was like, oh, wow, all these things are really snug. And even then I was like, I guess I gained a little weight, but whatever, who cares? And then I was going to a wedding in April and I was trying to put on all my formal clothes. And I was like, oh my God, none of these things fit. And I was like, wow, sunflower seeds are small but mighty, because I had no idea eating all those sunflower seeds was gonna make me gain all this weight. So in the process of that, because it's been a 10 years where I've basically been in the ballpark of the same size. So my closet is like highly unequipped for my new life, for my new body. But there's a combination of factors, right? There's like that on a capitalist and just an environmental level, I really don't want to buy a whole new fucking closet, but I will buy new things because that's just practical. We move things in, we move things out. And then two, also like I haven't actually had the opportunity to go to a lot of the classes that I've enjoyed because a lot of my teachers aren't teaching. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do something about it. I can't go to the classes I used to go to that were my method of keeping myself active and on my toes, because if you know me, you know I loathe the gym, but I like dancing. So like taking a class is a way for me to sort of master myself. And I found one. And so I went last week and I was like, all right, now every Wednesday that I have the freedom to do it, I'm going to go. And I took that action, right? I took that action as soon as Virgo season basically started. And now this Wednesday, I was like, oh, I wonder if my friend who went with me last time wants to go. And I asked her, and she's like, actually, I created a budget for dance classes, and this one qualifies for the budget because I enjoyed it. So yeah, I'll join you every Wednesday. So that's what I mean by like the Three of Wands energy, right? Like as soon as you take the action, existence will show up in the ways that you most prefer out of the circumstances that you're in to support that action, which is like, I can go to a dance class. I found a new one that's good because, I mean, subtext there is that in LA, we used to have really good dance studios. And then there was this weird wave where it was like only yoga studios. It was really hard to find a dance studio unless it was like ballet or ballroom, unless you went all the way to fucking Hollywood and went to Millennium where Britney Spears used to, like, there's just like, I was not going to go all that way. But now I'm in a dimension where there are more options. And so I'm taking more options. And like all of those things are part of why it's been so hard to find classes you love here. But now I found one. So it's like, it's not that there's no excuse. I don't want to use that language because it's like, that's not punishment to do the things that you prefer to do. And we have set it up in our minds where it feels like a risk to do the most authentic life for you. Whereas that's probably the safest lane for you, even if humanity doesn't seem to support that, because what we can know about humanity in general is just like, humanity is not in the business of meeting people's needs. That's what we have not decided to be that as a species. So until you meet your needs as an individual, it's highly unlikely that humanity is going to meet the needs of the people. It's like, if the people can't meet their own needs, then they're not going to know how or care how to meet other people's needs. And when I say your own needs, I obviously don't mean the kind of needs that exploit other people, but the kind of needs that help you be more present and authentic in your life. But again, if the advantage of the character is that we're at the 3 of Wands, you got about the 4, okay? And then when you get to the 5, trust that 2023 is not going to be this lightness. I don't know what people are expecting, but it's a pre-election year. And at least in this country, it's going to be a mess. So I think that the 3 of Wands about the character is like, use this fall going into winter, use the semi-pseudo chill of the end of 2022 and the reliability of what you think is going on to do the things that you want to do that are still accessible to do, because come future times, it's going to be a highly, highly stressful, and it's not going to be as easy to like recreationally change your life. And that's not even a fair portrayal. It's not recreational to be authentic, but because we have created a humanity that's in opposition to authenticity, it feels that way. So I'm just saying, use the open space right now before there's a lot of tension and people freaking out and panicking about things, which is certain to come. Certain. I mean, the holiday season's coming. We know that that's the most depressing time of the year. So, key card. Let's see what I can do so that I can know when I have hit the key cards in my video. So, goodbye, monthly read contributors. Thank you for playing. We'll see you later. Join us in Cards and Channel.